Hello there and welcome. In this video we are going to be having a quick look at this Fluval Evo. Now this Evo has been running for about 2 years now, which is quite a long time, and if you're a regular to my channel you would have seen it in its various different forms. This is the latest iteration of the build, and it's been going for a good 9 months to a year now. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you'd have seen me start this build and the posts of it developing over those months. But I thought it'd be a good idea to go through it now because it's looking, in my opinion, quite nice, and it'd be a shame not to highlight this aquarium. So this particular Evo is one of the first ones that arrived in the UK and into the shops. And my previous attempts at actually keeping things alive like corals in this tank didn't do very well. And it's either due to the fact that I was at that time completely incompetent at keeping corals alive, or perhaps that the first generation of Evos didn't quite have the right lighting on them, which has now subsequently been changed, but I don't know. However, I thought I would do a small macroalgae build in this Evo, and it's worked really well. So it's slightly different in the fact that rather than having lots of live rock in here, I have got beach pebbles. So they're quite large ones. They're round because they've been from a rocky shore, and they've been eroded into that kind of round rocky shore shape, which you'd kind of expect. And then what I've also added on the substrate is lots and lots of shells. So I thought that would simulate that kind of biotope quite nicely. There is a bit of live rock on the left hand side just to give you another dimension in shape and also to add a little bit of biological filtration. In terms of substrate, there's also some coralline sand on the bottom, and that's just there because it's kind of what you tend to use in a marine tank, and it does help buffer the water slightly. So in terms of actual livestock in this tank, there's quite a few different species of macroalgae. There's around 7 at last count. The big green one is Caulerpa prolifera, but there's also lots of red macroalgae in here. We have got things like Botricladia, Soliaria, which is red bamboo algae. On top of the live rock on the left is one that you don't see that often, and that's just a type of chondria, not really identified species-wise. There's also one which is particularly rare in the UK, and that's called Haleptilon. It's commonly known as red fern algae or red kelp, and apparently is really easy to grow, but every single tank I've tried to grow this in, it hasn't done very well, including my ones at home. But in this particular tank it seems to be doing okay, so I don't know what that's down to, but Haleptilon does like the Evo. On the power head we have some Gracilaria growing, and that's self-recruited there, so I've just left it. And we also have this really interesting red coralline algae. I don't see this very often. It's normally pink or sometimes a green colour, but this is a really vibrant red coralline algae, so I may in fact take some of this and export it into another one of my tanks. Being a low volume aquarium, there aren't actually that many fish in here. There is a 6-line wrasse, an azure damsel, a little bicolour blenny, a sulphur goby and a peppermint shrimp. And that's about all the stocking you would want in this size aquarium. It's only around 50 litres. Of course you lose a lot of the volume due to the amount of rock inside this tank. But with the macroalgae in there, it seems to stay pretty stable in terms of water quality. For cleanup crew, there are 2 turbo snails and 2 Halloween hermit crabs. There's also a boatload of dove snails because I really like them. They get into all the nooks and crannies. Care wise, again, like most of my macroalgae tanks, they don't need a lot of care other than regularly putting in some plant fertilizer, and for that I just use a general purpose aquarium plant fertilizer, and I dose a little bit of NPK every now and then. I don't really do a great deal to this aquarium. Of course I clean the glass as and when it needs it, and every now and then I might do a 30% water change, but that's about it. It tends to actually run quite nicely on its own. At one point I forgot to actually dose the fertilizers, and I think that caused the Caulerpa in there to go sexual, because it did go sexual pretty badly overnight, and I woke up to a bit of a mess, but it's recovered since then. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick look at this Fluval Evo, just showing you something different that you could do inside of one of these tanks. And if you have enjoyed it, please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also remember to hit the notification bell, because then you'll get to see my new uploads. So thank you so much for watching, and happy fish keeping!